Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the counselor's office. Sorry if my voice sounds weird. Was recording Pokemon Legends ZA, or we're not recording, but streaming it for 30 hours, so I'm losing my voice. But we're getting back into the grind, and I'm doing a little something different here. We are reacting to the changes that Bungie put out toward the portal and the power grind. Now, I'm going to do something different in the fact that when we are going to review or give my thoughts on it, I'm going to be objective. And I think I'm very fair, especially when I give my brutally honest thoughts and reviews on things. I'm fair. I'm probably one of the most fairest people out there when it comes to actually looking at something for what it is and then giving feedback. And yes, I go over the top at times. Absolutely. There's definitely subjectiveness in there. But I think when it comes to actually looking at the problem and, you know, addressing the problem, I'm one of the fairest. One of the fairest people on YouTube when it comes to Destiny. Absolutely. Pat myself on the back. I'm very, very, very fair. Yeah, absolutely. The fairest you'd ever seen. But before we get into it, yes, I'm going to be objective, which means I'm going to keep my subjective viewpoints out and just give you what the Bungie put these changes out, did it accomplish what it was trying to achieve? And in what way did it accomplish? What does it look like? All those aspects, completely objective. There may be moments where there might be a sprinkle subjective, but it's mostly 98% objective, just so you know. Before we jump in, I just want to make it very clear that this isn't me, you know, glazing, gaslighting, or doing anything like that. Like, I just want to be very clear. The portal needs to go. Progression's pointless, and this won't save the game. I'm just going to put that out there. That's the subjectiveness that you're going to get from me. Outside of that, we'll save that for a different video. But this video, you want to know what happened and what did it do, what Bungie wanted to do. So jumping in, we're going to talk about the whole concept of this is essentially power grind faster. That's essentially what this update was. Adding a lot more ability to upgrade at a faster rate, allowing people to jump in, especially with the free box that boosts everyone to 300, allowing you to essentially play the game. Also with the fact that you get 7, you know, unstable cores. That allows everyone to essentially just play the game without having to worry about materials, and everyone is at a range where you can start getting tier 3 loot. So let's talk about solo ops. Mostly nothing has changed with solo ops, except comparatively, it is now the slowest option to level up. What do I mean? Well, essentially outside of the bonus drops, which we'll talk about in a minute, you get 1 drop per run. Now you could speed run it doing, you know, 3-minute runs if you're fast enough and get a drop. And in that regard, it might add up to some of the other playlists that you can partake in. In this instance, objectively, it is slower compared to like Fireteam, which we'll jump into in a minute. However, they did not nerf anything. They did not change anything. Solo ops is still there for those who just want to play by themselves. Nothing's been changed outside of the bigger, wider changes, which we'll talk about closer toward the end, right? So Fireteam ops. This is both subjective and objective. Subjectively, it feels like the best position for power grinding, but at the same time, objectively, the time and effort that is put into it is negligible, especially when we talk about Reclaim, which is now fast and easy. They completely removed tokens and time limitation from matchmaking. Now, I don't know if this specifically came with this update, but I am going to go ahead and bundling it together because it does add to the overall changes and does make power grinding faster, which is what it is intended to do. With Fireteam ops, such as Reclaim, you get a wide range, 3 to 4 drops, plus any bonus drops, which we'll talk about in a minute. From 12 minutes to 18 minutes is the slowest from the ranges that I've done with matchmaking. You will get all of the power drops. Now, it used to be you had to worry about, you know, a little Timmy dying and using up all your revive tokens. You would have to worry about time limitations, and then if you didn't meet the goal of time, you wouldn't get your power boost. Now it is made to the fact that it doesn't matter how many times you die, Doesn't matter if you have a strong player, a weak player. It doesn't matter if you take 12 minutes or 18 minutes, or if for some reason, if you go longer than that, you will still get the advertised loot and you can continue to farm over and over and over again. You get to play with other people and you can play how you want to play. They did remove several negative modifiers, such as the shield buster one. I completely forgot what it's called. I think it's devouring shield, if I'm mistaken. Essentially, if you took too much damage in your shield, you would be handicapped and you would have a teammate to help pop that. I never ran into that in matchmaking. I don't know if it's completely gone, but for the sake of the video, I'll say we will keep an eye out for that. But when it was not in effect, into effect, the experience was good. It was a good experience. Now, whether you like Reclaim or not, this is not what this video is about. From a power progression, it is fast, it is efficient, and you could casually play it. It is a casual playlist where you could watch Netflix or do something else or hang out with friends, and you don't have to stress about it. The stress level from when it started out to where it is now is significantly different. When we're talking about other aspects of Fireteam ops, like strikes that show up, same thing applies to that. You can now do battlegrounds. You can do strikes like liminality when there's matchmaking available. Matchmaking is not for everything, and it rotates on what gets matchmaking. That's a different video with a different conversation. We're keeping it objective. Objectively, it's on rotation. And objectively, when you play matchmaking, you get the loot regardless, as long as you complete it. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of sacrifice being made. There's no concern. You can just play the game. If you see something that you enjoy, it's matchmaking, or you can go solo. You can still adjust and play solo. You can do solo nightfalls. But if you want to play with other people and there's matchmaking, the experience is a more positive one because you no longer have to rely on running the most meta options. You don't have to rely on, you got a new blue bear, a new light player. They're not holding you back. There is no reason why anyone should be getting upset based on what you play, unless they're just being jerks. And that is me being subjective. Outside of that, the experience is 10 times better than it ever was. However, something to notice, especially with all of the matchmaking, the leveling system is weird. What I mean is, if you don't wear your max gear, you get thrown into a tier lower in matchmaking. For instance, I'm in ultimate mode, but if I put on my PvP gear, which is not leveled up to 520, 510, I'm dunked all the way into Grandmaster tier. It just automatically does that rather than just allowing your gear to count for any act. It just doesn't automatically notice your account power. It just notices what your current power is, and it will adjust it to that. Like you have to make sure that your gear is always at highest level to get the highest tier, because if you are at ultimate level and you do matchmaking, it will put you down. Like if you're an ultimate, you'll go to Grandmaster and you will not get the highest rank possible. You will go from A tier to B or C tier. Like it is almost impossible to play at a lower level, even with there being Fireteam levels, supposedly in play. Again, there's an asterisk there. I don't know if that's changed or not, but that was a thing that was still supposed to exist. That doesn't matter because the system itself will dock you points and your leveling will not progress. Not only that, but even at max ranking, there is some discrepancy from activity to activity with matchmaking. It seems that if you look at two different ones, there's one that has max light of what you're supposed to be getting versus one that's only a +1 or +2 or whatever. For me, I'm at ultimate mode. I'm at so far progressed that I'm only getting +2s now. In this regard, there's one where I get the +2s, and there's another matchmaking activity where I only get +1s. That is due to my theory crafting that the modifiers that are in the one playlist match the difficulty and give you enough points to get +2, whereas the other one is lacking modifiers for some reason, and there's no way to change that. You essentially, the only way to make sure that you don't lose out on that bonus loot is just not to play it or LFG, right? You wait for it to rotate into a better modifier, and you don't go after it. So it is a little weird. That's not just being subjective. That's also objectively, it kind of negates what the point of the changes were, which is supposed to be an easier experience and allow people to level up faster. This doesn't allow people to level up faster in that regard. Now, talking about easier aspects, let's talk about deltas. Deltas were enforced into the game. Essentially, all the portal is now delta capped. Raids are delta capped already. They've always been like -10, but now you have all the portal, which is delta capped. It used to be where you could over level and it would scale all the way to easy. If you were high enough, you can just essentially treat portal as like a public space without being a public space. Again, we're not going to talk about in the video whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. We're going to keep this objective. Deltas are noticeable in ultimate mode, but in lower activities like Grandmaster, where the higher you go, the easier it becomes up to normal. Now, normal, as someone who I started at 470, I was still in Grandmaster territory. I was doing normal. I was delta capped. It wasn't hard. Even with fun throwaway builds, it wasn't hard. Sure, you can get hit hard, but overall, it compared to Grandmaster, if I compare Grandmaster to Grandmaster pre-Edge of Fate, I would say it is easier now than it was back then. That is not just subjective. As someone who has played Grandmaster and I've ran Grandmaster, objectively, it is easier, especially when you start adding boons into the situation. Not only that, but you get to control the negative modifiers, which Bungie had complete control with Grandmasters back in the day. So you get to curate your entire experience. And so from that perspective, it is easier now than it previously was. Now, Ultimate, new mode, essentially fills in between Master and Grandmaster, and that is a little subjective. However, it is capped at hard. You will never go higher than 470. It doesn't matter if you're 550 or not. At 470, you are max capped. You're 30 under. It feels, as someone who's played Master, even Grandmaster, it feels very reminiscent of that, where in like Grandmaster's pre-Edge of Fate, you could have God builds where you could just destroy everything, yet you could easily still die. Enemies could still kick your butt. Enemies could still destroy you if you're not playing smart. They hit hard. The negative modifiers were there. You had to worry about, wiping. All these are factors that still play a part in ultimate mode, especially with the lack of tokens. Now, for those wondering, ultimate mode, if you do matchmaking, no, there's no tokens, there's no time, and there is no extinction involved. So if you're in ultimate mode and you're farming matchmaking, it's actually probably some of the easiest hard content in the game. Delta, it was noticeable in ultimate because you used to be able to over level and make ultimate easier, right? In this regard though, it's not bad. If you have a decent build and you use some boons to give you some positive modifiers, you can still destroy content. You can still one-shot champions. You could still crush bosses. From solo, I even did Fireteam matchmaking. I even did solo exotic missions in ultimate mode with some negative modifiers. And you can steal a solo flawless Presage. It is still possible to play this harder end content and ultimate mode and still not waste your time. It depends on you as a player, what you want to do, but now it feels like the whole game is available The whole game feels available for you to choose how you want to play at whatever level you're currently at. That was Bungie's intent with a lot of these changes, and based on my experience, but also what I've seen from the community, it has achieved that. Now, whether, again, we're not talking about whether it's a good system, a bad system. We're just talking about the goal. Did it achieve its goal? And whether this is how it should have been, again, that's all subjective. We're keeping to the objectiveness. One of the biggest changes, especially ultimate mode, anyone that was farming ultimate and wasn't already 450 or 550 or above, right? Above 500 can tell you that now you no longer have to farm at a negative 60 power with a bunch of negative modifiers. And even old, like smaller levels like Grandmaster, all the way down to Master and such, the experience overall is better. You do not, even where I'm at now, you do not have to run max negative modifiers. You still do. You still have to run negative modifiers, but it is now incredibly flexible. What I mean is you can now run boons. It used to be, especially the higher you got, the less, until you got to a certain threshold, you could not use positive boons because they negatively influenced your score to the extent that you were you had to put in a bunch of like heavy duty negative modifiers to compensate, or you just didn't ran them at all. Now, the negative impact is so minimal that the trade-off is actually worth it. I can run, when I run ultimate, run 3 at max, very often boons, increasing, heavy damage, my 25% surge. If there's anything else like Slayer, which increases overall damage, like I will get those that will overall overcome any of the negativities. And then I'll choose some negative modifiers like Banes. Banes give you a +5. I don't know about you. I like Banes. I think they're cool and they're just free. It is a free +5 to your score. You don't even have to run at ultimate mode. You get extra modifiers such as pressure cooker, which you have a certain time limit. If you're farming content where you'll never run out of time, pressure cooker is another free +4 boost to your score. There's also you could do avant-garde, or you could do lock loadout, or you could do both. If you are only running new gear, you can run both for another big boost, and that allows you to essentially skip all these other negative modifiers. But if you don't want to play, with stuff that isn't featured gear, you can run lock loadouts or not lock loadouts. You can do radar, no radar. You can do no starting ammo, especially if you're running an ability build that doesn't care about ammo. Like, it depends on what you're running and what you want to run. You can mix and match and achieve the most efficient outcome now than I think you did at the beginning. You can now choose to have fun and still do the power grind. Unfortunately, the grapple mod is still a -4. It is significant. It is noticeable. You will have to make concessions if you're going to run that. It is what it is. Again, I'm trying to be objective, not subjective, but I'm just telling you that it is still the biggest negative boon, and you will have to compensate for your score. If you're just farming tier 5s, you don't care about the power progression, then essentially when you hit tier 5, you could just run whatever and you will always get tier 5s, right? Or 450, depending what the threshold is. You can essentially run ultimate, always get tier 5s. You don't even have to care about. But if you're specifically looking at the power progression itself, you will have to make concessions for that specific boon. Whereas the other boons, they're not as noticeable, especially if you run 1 or 2. It's not that detrimental. And there's also other modifiers like the trade-offs, where it used to be where these boons would increase your combatant level. This is the most noticeable change, is that you can run any boon, or any bane, should I say, any bane that you want. and it will not increase the combatant power. That is the trade-off. The delta is the trade-off. You no longer have to have impossible enemies, hard, like over the top enemies. You can choose any bane that you want to make it work for you. In fact, there's a lot based on my build. I use a solar melee bonk build, and there was a bane that was called one of the trade-offs where I applied more solar damage to targets like Scorch, but they also apply more Scorch to me as well. So stuff like that, depending on my build loved the idea of adding more Scorch stacks. It was, I'm going to heal off whatever damage is done to me because I'm running around healing myself with my solar abilities. So that specific bane is a nothing burger. And so this change allows you to focus on what is best for you in your build. You can min-max, optimize your experience. I'm spending a lot of time going over this specific area because this is the most noticeable and the most, I think, refreshing change, because it gives you a lot more control to play the game how you want to play. You want a challenge, you get the challenge. If you want an easier experience, there is ways to make it easier. It is all based on what you are wanting from the experience. And again, we could argue that's how it should have been. I'm not giving Bungie praise on that specifically. I am saying that they achieved the goal that they set out to achieve in that regard. They gave players the freedom to choose how to power progress. With that, we're getting to bonus drops, which are actually bonus drops, both subjective in feel, but objectively, they drop at the power level of other drops. This change has personally boosted my levels incredibly fast, and I play as a casual. At a casual rate, I went from 470 all the way up to 510 as of recording it. I did spend a little bit more time than normal than I have been playing Destiny, because I specifically wanted to be able to do this review and give it a fair shake, playing from all playlists. This is not including the raid. And the reason why I did not include the raid is because that is based on not the portal. I wanted to focus on the portal itself and what is in the portal and the changes that came to the portal. Activities with bonus chests that drop that aren't considered mid activities. You'll see in, like, for example, Onslaught, there will be bonus drops. There will be completion drops, and then there'll be mid completion drops, right? These are all different drops that happen in these activities. You also see it in exotic missions as well, like Encore. There's that chest that as well. These mid bonus chests will drop at power level now. However, they're still useless drops, and that's not subjective. That's objective, because these drops, for example, from Reclaim, there'll be a bunch of drops until you get to the final end activity drop. That's where the power is. All the loot, all the drops, you'll get 3 different chests leading to the final chest, and all 3 of those will drop all the way down to tier 3 loot. I get tier 5, but all that is tier 3 for some reason. And it drops at like a negative 60 power. Coil did the same thing when I tested it at the beginning until you've done 2 rotations. Then you start getting that mid-tier activity loot at power level. Whether this is intentional, whether this is something that needs to be changed, that's subjective. Objectively, there's still useless loot that will neither give you the level that you're probably wanting, and it won't give you the power level that you want either. It's just shredded loot. PvP itself is unchanged outside of the bonus drops, which does add more value, and I encourage you to touch PvP. However, if you are not objectively good enough to achieve a rank in PvP, then getting max Crucible rank at 450 guarantees tier 5 gear as long as you get 1 kill in both Crucible and Trials. This matters because your bonus drops will not drop higher than whatever your normal drops would be. So if you get a rank C in PvP, then bonus drops will be wasted at rank C. Doing weekly challenges unlocks more bonus drops, which is where the biggest bump in power comes from. So I personally encourage you to go through and do all your weeklies If you're casually playing, do all your weeklies. I would go ahead and do some of those, especially if you have +3 on some of those activities. Do those first. Bonus drops are capped at +3s. You're wasting your time on those activities, especially matchmaking activities. If you only want to play matchmaking activities or solo ops or PvP, knock those all out and then turn in those weekly objectives, because the moment you turn them in is when they unlock more portal drop. And yes, sometimes they won't go to the ones that you've done already, and some activities just don't get them at all. Like, it took a while for me to get any drops to show up on Presage for some reason. Presage just barely got any bonus drops. It could be an RNG for me that just didn't work out. But overall, it is important now to do your weeklies and to make sure you do as much of those +3s ahead of time, because if anything were to go to that, it would waste your drops. Did Bungie achieve their goal? Did this change and increase the rate at which you can power grind and get as high as possible? The answer is yes. Bungie accomplished their goal. Bungie made it more viable to do other activities and to ping pong around the portal to get higher light level. It is a more enjoyable experience. I know that's subjective, but the ability to curate your experience is going to lend itself objectively to a better experience per person. Done being objective, I think I did pretty good. Let me know. I tried to be as objective as possible, right? Just get to the details, get to things. Don't get used to it, by the way, because being objective is great, but I think I bring a lot on the table when I'm being subjective. But I did want to look at this, tackle this, and why did I do this? Why mix the formula up? One, just that, to mix the formula up, but two, to showcase that even when being objective, I still provide brutally honest feedback. Like, it doesn't change what I do when I talk about Destiny, that I can vote. I'm fair and I'm critical because I enjoy the game. Now, if you want to know my personal experience, the subjective experience, I find it a lot more enjoyable. I enjoyed playing certain activities like strikes, like I played Liminality. It was nice to play a strike for once. It was nice to just be able to play an exotic mission like Presage again and then actually get rewarded for it. And it reminds me that the portal sucks, because the whole game should feel like that, not just this Fortnite simulator. But I'm going to save that for a different video. But I was holding all the subjectiveness in the end. I did good as I could. And the people who stuck around are the people that probably just wanted to hear my subjective opinion. We'll do a video on that. But overall, this is a different video. But I do want to mix things up. People will get tired of me doing reacts. Well, here's a review that is objective. It's possible. I can be objective. I like having my own subjective flair to it, okay? Anyways, I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. Hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel for more. As always, before my voice goes out, I'll see you in the next one.